These are the ones where there is usually a question behind the question. It seems straightforward, or you think you can glide by with a glib answer. But in fact, if you can nail them, not only have you dodged a bullet, but you're making the investor realize that you have superpowers. Hi, I'm Brian, and this is Humble Conviction, where we help startup founders pitch better and get funded faster. And today, we're going to go through the 5 most difficult questions you could be asked after you've finished your initial pitch. Now, we're going to be going in increasing levels of difficulty, so we'll start on the easy side, but you'll want to watch till the end because number 4 and 5 are super difficult, and you want to make sure you know how to nail them. Now, from my experience, I have invested in more than 150 startups. I've coached 2,500 pitches, and I've probably asked thousands, tens of thousands of questions of startup founders. And of course, you're going to get asked the typical questions like, what's your market size? What's your revenue model? Why are you qualified to run this company? But these aren't the ones we're going to be talking about. These are the ones where there is usually a question behind the question. It seems straightforward, or you think you can glide by with a glib answer. But in fact, if you can nail them, not only have you dodged a bullet, but you're making the investor realize that you have superpowers. So let's jump right in. Now, the 5th most difficult question is, what are you going to use the money for? Sometimes they ask, what's the use of proceeds? And in your heart as a startup founder, you're probably thinking, dear God, I just need a little extra money to extend my runway so I can figure out what the hell I'm doing. Or sometimes they'll say, oh, I want to invest in product or, something process oriented. But what an investor is really asking is, what am I buying with my money? They want to know that if they give you their investment and that gets you another 12 or 18 months, at the end of that 12 or 18 months, what is the company going to look like? Is it going to have X dollars in revenue? Are you going to ship these features? Are you going to have this many contracts? And the reason they care about that is not just to validate that you're a real company and that you can execute, but they care whether you can raise the next round of capital. Because if you can't raise any more capital, you're in trouble as a company. And then they're left in their portfolio with a company that is stuck and is probably dead, and that's not good for them either. So when they ask, what are you going to do with the money, or what's your use of proceeds, it's important to say, what is the outcome of getting this money, not actually what you're going to spend it on. Now, the 4th most difficult question you may get is, what is your first hire going to be after you get the investment? And this isn't really a question about hiring. This is a question about whether you understand the gating issues, what needs to happen for you to take your company to the next level, and what kind of staffing you need to get there. Now, a lot of people reflexively answer, oh, well, we need more engineering talent. Well, maybe, but maybe the product is good enough. And what you really need is to go out to the market and get more validation by signing contracts or pilots or even generating revenue. Or sometimes you've done your customer discovery and you realize you do need more features or better features, in which case you might need engineering or a UI UX person. So it's not really about the hiring. It's really about, do you know how to deploy the capital to hire the right people, the right team, to make the numbers that you have promised, and therefore to validate the company and to validate the investment. Okay, we're getting more difficult here. We're up to the 3rd most difficult question you might get asked by an investor, and that's, what does this company look like in success? That's an incredibly vague question. You can't just say we're going to be a unicorn or we're going to conquer the world. That's not going to cut it. You need to be a little more specific than that. You need to toe the line between realism and optimism. So I like to think about it in 3 ways. The first part is, what do I have to believe to get to the outcome of this first pre-seed or seed round? So as we talked about already, that might be some clients, some product improvement, something that moves you towards product market fit. But then the second stage is, how do you scale from that? Are you then looking at hundreds of customers, certain amount of revenue, sort of moving from the small and medium businesses up to enterprise scale businesses, something that really validates that this can become a big company. And then the third part, that's when you get to have fun. That's when you get to say, we are going to become the industry standard so that every Fortune 500 company is using our software with all of its integrations to perform this function. Now, you've got to do that not just to convince the investor you're talking to, But usually they have to go back to an investment committee within their fund and convince them that this is a good investment. And when they say, what's the big idea here? They need to be able to remember what you told them the big idea is. It has to be memorable and visual, and it has to be dripping money. And they need to be able to say that, and you need to trigger dollar signs in the eyes of that investment committee. And that's how you close the investment, by nailing that question. Okay, we're up to the two most difficult questions you might face as a founder. And these are so unusual that I have to say that when I ask them, almost guaranteed, the founder has never heard these questions before, but you need to be prepared, and they're helpful thought exercises regardless. So here's number 2. Are you a technical innovation or a business innovation? And you might say, I don't know, what's the difference? Like, we're a business company that has technology. Who cares? Well, it's important, because if you are a technology innovation, that means that you have invented something, developed something that is unique and difficult to build. And you've discovered that there is a business case, people who will pay to use this because it's useful. On the other side, if it's a business innovation, the need comes from the business side. It's you have discovered through your customer discovery or knowing the industry that there is an acute business need, a real pain, that if you can solve it, there is unique value, and then you have gone and built the technology to go ahead and solve that problem. It's very different. And it's also important that your management team, your founding team, matches that. If it's a technical innovation, you better believe that it's probably going to be a technical founder or a world-class CTO. Business, it's got to be a great business person with experience, the knowledge in the industry, understanding the consumer's problem. So once again, technical innovation means that you're technology forward, you've built the technology, you're applying it to a business case. A business innovation, it's a business problem that you figured out some technology to solve. In some ways, there's no right answer there, but they want to see that you've thought about it, that you understand the difference, and that you know what lane you're playing in. And finally, I think this is the single most difficult question you could face as a founder. And here it is. What do you understand that others don't understand? Why are you looking here for a solution when others are looking here? And that is so important, because unless you're a Nobel laureate, you probably haven't built technology that others haven't, or that Google, Meta, big tech couldn't build if they wanted to, right? That's another question you get. What would happen if Google wanted to build this? Well, let me give you a specific example involving Google. So Gmail, it's been around for 20 years. We all use it. It's terrible, right? The interface is ugly. You have to hit refresh. There's limited functionality, but it's good enough, and it's Google, and it's integrated. So we all use it, and we're stuck with it. But then a few years ago, a company came around called Superhuman. It's an email client, and it is so good that a lot of people, including me, paid $30 a month with no free trial and could not think of giving it up. And all it is an email client that sits on top of Gmail or whoever your email service provider is. And instead of all that janky stuff, number one, it is super fast. And number two, everything you want to do, you can do with a keystroke, and it advertises that it makes your email 50% faster, and it actually does. Now, there's an example. Oh, and they just got acquired, by the way. They didn't disclose the number, but I'm pretty sure it was a big number. So there's an example of someone who had an insight that the problem with Gmail was not that it was ugly, but that it needed to be fast and it needed to be elegant. And that's an example where UI and UX was the only insight they needed to compete with Google. They didn't have to beat Google, just put a dent in it, generate a ton of revenue, and exit successfully. So there you go. Those are the 5 most difficult questions you could be asked by a venture capitalist when you're pitching your startup. Now, notice I said could, not will, because most people don't ask these questions. That's why they're so rare and so difficult. But you should be prepared. It's helpful as a thought exercise, but also if you get these questions, it's not about blowing them. It's more like an upside opportunity. If you can nail them, then you have shown an extraordinary ability, not just to understand your own business, but to explain it to other people. And that goes a long, long way in getting an investor to say yes. So that's today's video. I hope you found it enjoyable and helpful. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please hit subscribe down below. Hit like, leave a comment, tell your friends, and remember, we're all about pitching strong and staying humble. See you next time.